What's going on today, guys? I am coming to you on a 2017 Ducati Monster 797, courtesy of the good guys and gals up at Ducati Winchester in Winchester, Virginia, your authorized Ducati dealer and your authorized Ducati test facility. So I broached the idea with them about a month ago when I started working on my sister's Ducati Monster 620 about comparing the new air-cooled Monster versus the old air-cooled Monster. I mean, they're 15 years apart. So the plan for today is I'm going to start out on the 797. We're going to go run a road that we're familiar with. It's a lot of fun. Then we're going to switch bikes. My sister's going to take the 797. I'm going to take the 620. Ride them on that same exact road again, and then compare them and let you guys know how the old 620 matches up against the new 797.
Alright, so there's some major differences between these two monsters. One's white, one's black, one's old, one's new, one's bigger, one's smaller. But I wanted to show you a couple like a little bit smaller differences that at first glance you might not notice. Okay, so let's start with one of the more noticeable things, and that's the shock. The 797 has the side mount shock, where the 620 has the more traditional mounted shock in the middle of the swing arm. The next thing that may pop out to you is the exhaust. If we get a look here at the back of the 620, you can see it's got the dual mount mufflers coming off the back, where the 797 has just a single muffler and it's one of the little stubby cutoff ones. The 797 has the new starter setup, where the 620 has the more traditional, just regular old push button. So if we take a quick look, we see they both have Brembo brakes, but that's pretty much where the comparison stops. So the Monster 620 back in 2002 did come with twin disc, but the dark model, which was the cheaper model, had a single disc. And if you look at how it's mounted, that is the more traditional mount of the brake caliper versus the new 797, which has radial mount calipers. It also does have dual disc on the front and ABS. The 797 is using an LCD display to give you all your pertinent information, where the 620 is using analog gauges and a couple of idiot lights, though you do have a couple of LCD displays built into the analogs. The 620 does have something that the 797 doesn't have, and that is a hydraulic clutch. The 797 has a cable actuated clutch. So there's obviously a lot more differences than what I pointed out, but those are a few that I found interesting. I hope you guys did too.
So when you first sit down on the 797, I've got good news for the shorter riders out there. It's not a very high seat height. I'm 5'10" with a 32-inch inseam, and I've got a significant bend in my leg with both feet flat on the ground. That said, I don't feel cramped riding the bike in any way. You've got a nice, you know, you're leaned forward a little bit, but you don't have a whole lot of pressure on your lower back because there's no wind protection, so the wind's kind of holding you up a little. The seat's not bad on it. And overall, it's just a pretty comfortable riding position. I don't know that I would take this thing big time touring, but if you want to go out and do a weekend overnight tour on it, I think you'd be pretty comfortable. Now, this isn't the first Ducati I've ridden that has this LCD display, and I am a big fan of it for two main reasons. One, it's really clean, and two, it's really easy to read and get the information quickly. That way you can get your eyes back on the road. Speaking of on the road, no one is ever going to confuse the Monster series as a race bike. It's made to ride on the street, and it does that very well. It's not a powerhouse. It's only putting out 73 horsepower, but the engine's got enough power and it's got enough torque that even if you get into a corner and maybe too high a gear, normally you're going to motor out of it just fine. It's really smooth. The throttle response is, you know, they got the fuel injection worked out on this thing, so it's smooth. The suspension, I don't want to call it rough, but you may hear my voice quiver here or there if I go over a little, there you go, a little bit harder section of pavement. It'll soak it up, but you're going to feel it a little bit. Another thing when it comes to the handling and suspension on this bike, it's very predictable. It's also very easy to turn in with this giant handlebar, but you know exactly what it's going to do. There's no surprises mid-corner. It doesn't get upset. It tracks pretty well, and I have to say, for a street bike and a standard street bike at that, the thing handles pretty fun. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it on the back roads. So since this isn't one of my typical review videos and it's a comparison video, I'm not going to share any more of my thoughts on the 797 quite yet until I'm able to hop on the 620 and really get a feel for it, and then be able to tell you what the differences and similarities are. So let's hop on the 620. So the first thing I noticed when I got on the 620 is it feels like the seat height is even lower, and it's definitely, once you get on it and in position, a little bit more sporty of a, you guys just saw me try to shift there, I'll talk about that in a minute. It's definitely a sportier riding position. My feet are a little back further behind me. My torso's leaned forward a little more. There's a little more pressure on my wrist. It's not quite a full-on sport bike, but definitely a sportier seating position than the 797. And my legs are definitely cramped up a bit more on this bike than the newer bike. So you guys saw me try to grab another gear back there, and that's one thing the 620 is missing. There is no sixth gear. So you kind of get up around 60-70 miles an hour and you're looking to shift again, and unfortunately there's no 6-speed. And you know, obviously the 797's got a 6-speed gearbox, and it does come in handy because once you get up there around 70, you're ready to kick it up into overdrive, and it's just a little bit less buzzy of a ride at that point. So you can definitely tell the older 620 is not quite as refined as the newer bike. First off, even though it's fuel injected, it's still, this is not a choke over here. It's actually a timing advance that sometimes you need when you're starting the bike up cold to get it running. It kind of works the same way as a choke in a way. Anyway, you've got that, you've got the older analog gauges. It's a little bit buzzier, it's a little bit more raw, where the 797, like I said, is a little more refined. While I don't find the power of the new bike to be that big of a difference, I mean, we're only talking 13 horsepower, it does rev much quicker. And then the big thing is, it's so much smoother putting on the power. The fuel injection, the fuel maps, and even the and the throttle response, it's just much smoother applying the power, which makes it a little bit easier to exit the corner and really get on it. And when it comes to handling, I'm going to put the 620 right there with the 797. I mean, they both handle, they're very similar characteristics. Handling, I think you can definitely ride the 797 a little bit faster, mainly because of the brakes. The 620 brakes, they give good feedback, but they will not stop you near as quickly as there's dual disc on the front of the 797. In fact, you know, early on, the first couple of corners, I ran into them just a little bit deeper than I wanted to because it didn't have quite the stopping power. Even though there's only a 4-pound difference between the two bikes and the 620 is heavier, it feels much smaller. And you know, some of that has to do with the ergos. It doesn't feel any heavier. In fact, it feels a little bit lighter. It's a little bit easier, I find, to move around the garage or around the driveway than the 797. Not that either one of them's tough, but the 620 just feels a little bit more compact. So after riding both bikes back to back, I guess I've come to this conclusion. They're both really fun bikes to ride. I think if you're going to go out and, you know, hit up some back roads with your friends, both of them are fun. I do like the 797 a little bit better. It's a little bit easier to get the power down to the ground. It's got better brakes. Like I said, the handling, really no difference there. It's just a little more refined of a motorcycle. I do like, even though I like the old school look of these analog gauges, it is easier to read the LCD. And then the other big thing is I'm more comfortable on the 797 ergonomically. The other thing I didn't mention about the 620, the way the seat's sloped, it kind of, how do I put this, runs my man parts into the tank. So it's not quite as comfortable for me. I don't think my sister will probably have that problem, but yeah, for me it's a little bit of an issue. The 620 really has impressed me for a 15-year-old motorcycle, down on power, you know, one less disc brake. The odds were stacked against it, and it has done remarkably well. I don't think the 797 is like some huge jump. It's just got, you know, the 620 beat by half a step and everything. The bike really has aged well, and it's been a fun time riding both of them today.
I really like the Ducati Monster 797. From the time we got up to Duck Pond for the bikes and breakfast, I saw the white matte finish on the tank, the red frame, the red wheels. It just really popped out from the rest of the bike sitting out in front of the store. Once I got on the bike, I could tell that the seat was noticeably higher and the tank set up a little higher than that of the 620. The only issue I had is I couldn't figure out how to start it. So once Mario got off and showed me where it was kind of like a start lever. It kind of looked like the kill switch on my 620. So once we got that going, got out on the open road, hit the throttle. I barely had to touch the throttle and already felt so much more power and torque than I have on the 620, and it was so much smoother. I barely had to work as a rider to keep that bike going. First couple miles, I was still trying to get used to the bike. I was sitting in a little more upright position than I am on the 620. 620, I'm a little bit more leaning forward, sportier position. First couple of turns, I braked a little bit harder than usual. And on that bike, braking a little bit harder than usual, I could definitely feel that braking system kick in. But when I accelerated out, again, the transition was so smooth, the bike did most of the work. Versus a 620, between the braking and the throttle, I really have to work as a rider to keep the 620 smooth going through the turns. I really appreciated the 6th gear that the 797 offered, because when I hit the straightaways, popped her up in a 6th gear, again, barely had to touch this throttle to accelerate out, and it felt so smooth. I really liked the LED gauge screen that the 797 had. It was a really clean, modern look for the bike. It was also really easy to read. I could glance down very quickly, check my RPMs or my speed, whatever I needed, and keep it moving. The only thing I probably didn't like about the bike were the side mirrors. I didn't mind how they looked, I just had a hard time seeing out of them. But other than that, the bike was really refined. It was easy to ride. I wanted to take that bike for an overnight trip or a weekend trip versus a 620, which I will take it for a trip. I've done it before. I'm probably gonna get sore, I'm gonna get tired, and then I'm gonna get a little cranky. If I had my choice between the two, I'm gonna take the 797.
So now that you've heard my thoughts and my sister's thoughts, you know, no surprise, we both think the 797 is the better of the two motorcycles. But I have to admit, I was rather impressed with the 620. For being a 15-year-old bike, it held its own pretty well. Alright guys, so that's going to wrap up today's comparison video. Big thank you to the folks up at Ducati Winchester for loaning me out this Monster 797. If you'd like to take it for a spin, I'm going to put their contact information up on the screen and in the description below. Just stop in, it's a demo. They'd be more than happy to let you take it out for a ride. Also, big thank you to my sister Angela for agreeing to be in today's video. We had a good time out riding the 797 and the 620 for that matter. And if you'd like to take the 620 out for a spin, you're gonna have to talk to her about it, but I don't think your chances are very good. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider hitting that subscribe button. If you have any questions for me or my sister, put them in the comment section below. I can't promise that she'll chime in, but I'll see what I can do. And as always, I'll talk to you again soon.